I'm Yolanda, the founder and CEO at Uncommon, a private network for women in leadership. I'm grateful to be discussing this subject with all of you today. This is a subject that comes up quite often for our members. I'm really excited to be talking about the subject in the context of also working in Singapore and wider Southeast Asia. For a little bit about me, prior to starting Uncommon, I spent over 12 years in various commercial, operational leadership roles at early stage, high growth tech companies like Deliveroo, Uber, and Rocket Internet. And it was really my experience as a senior female leader in tech that led me to launch Uncommon, a space that I hope empowers women with the right network, toolkit, and insights to navigate their careers and lives meaningfully. I'm very happy to introduce our speakers today. We have a lot for you today. So we have Sandrine, we have two couples, and we also have a wonderful relationship therapist as well. So we have, first and foremost, Sandrine and Denise, a wife and wife couple based in Singapore. Sandrine is an organizational psychologist, the CEO of Vertical Breakthrough, and one of Uncommon's executive coaches. Her partner, Denise, is the global head of monetization at a leading advertising agency. Welcome, Sandrine and Denise. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello. Thanks for having us. We're excited.
Yeah, so excited to dive into this subject with both of you. We're also so grateful to have Sonia and Vikas join us. Vikas is running a little bit behind, so he'll be here in a little bit, but I'm very happy to introduce Sonia, who is the head of content and activation at a leading global investment bank. And Vikas is the CEO and co-founder of A Billion, a social commerce platform dedicated to sustainability. Welcome, Sonia. So happy to have you here.
Thanks, Yolanda. Excited to be here.
Great. And last but not least, we're also joined by Theresa Pong. Theresa is a counseling director and co-founder of the Relationship Room. Welcome, Theresa.
Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so happy to have such a wonderful mix with us today. So before we get started, some housekeeping. If you have any questions for our guest speakers, or if there's something from the discussion that resonated with you, feel free to type it in the chat. We're going to get to your questions at the very end during our Q&A session. If anything from our conversation today resonated with you, share it on social media and tag us. We are at Hey Uncommon, HEYUNCOMMON on Instagram, and This is Uncommon on LinkedIn. Let's dive in. So before we kick off, I'd love to invite all the attendees to answer a poll. I always love to get a sense of who's in the room with us. Are you part of a dual career couple? Are you and your partner both pursuing your careers at the moment? Look at this as a sense. Okay. Okay, so yes, yes at 80%, no, 13%, and prefer not to answer. Great. So a pretty big split, but heavily weighted to people who are also kind of navigating this subject as well. Great. So a little bit, I'll start with a briefing about our subject. So firstly, dual career couples are on the rise and fast becoming the norm. According to McKinsey's report, the majority of workers in the US are dual career couples. In Singapore, dual career couples represent the largest group among married couples. While dual career couples enjoy benefits like greater financial freedom, it comes with its unique set of challenges. When those, for instance, when those ambitions clash, or potentially if trajectories don't really align. Some of these challenges could look like figuring out whose career takes a backseat with the arrival of a child, or deciding to relocate for a partner's career opportunity at the expense of another's. So these are subjects that can come up in this related to this subject. In Couples That Work, the author and organizational behavior professor at INSEAD, Jennifer Petriglieri, who studied over 100 dual earning couples, found that dual career couples faced 3 predictable transitions. So the first transition, which usually occurs within the first 3 to 5 years of the relationship, is about how couples can practically combine 2 careers and 2 lives into a single path that supports them both. The second transition is often the most stressful period of a couple's life in figuring out whose careers are a priority and what they want out of life. Couples can tend to polarize in their identities. One might be the more ambitious one, and the other might become the holder of the family. As time goes on, these roles can become quite constraining for the individual and require a different type of support from the other partner. And then lastly, the third transition that's often seen is around purpose. It occurs at a stage when partners become more senior in their careers. There might be a sense of loss around kids leaving the nest, or a slowing down in their careers. So on the flip side, it can also present an opportunity for couples to rediscover the joys and freedom they once enjoyed together, collectively or individually. So I'd love now to turn it over to our speakers. So maybe I'll start with you, Sonia. You and Vikas are both on the fast track. You're ambitious and have demanding career paths. Like, have you ever related to any of those 3 phases? Were there, and how did you navigate those 2 together?
Yeah, absolutely. So Vikas and I have been together for about 15 years. So we actually met really at the beginning of my career, and married now for 10 years. And we've seen two big moves for us. First one was from New York to Sacramento, California, and then the second one was from California to Singapore. And both of those were actually, I guess the catalyst for both of those were actually more on the side of Vikas's career. And the first move happened when we were making a decision literally right after we got married, within the first few months of our marriage, of whether to move from New York to California, for Vikas to take a big role with a very prestigious pension fund. And so I remember talking to my dad about this, and I grew up as an only child with a very, Chinese father, traditional in the sense of, very focused on education, also very focused on kind of like, I guess he was a feminist in a way, like he really believed that I could do anything that I wanted, that my career would be very important at some point in time. And I remember being nervous to have this conversation with him, sitting on my bed saying, Dad, Vikas has gotten a job offer in California, but that means that I will have to leave my role at this investment bank. And I've worked very hard in this position for 5 years, and I don't know what I would actually do there. And I was really surprised by his response, because I did not expect it at all from him. But he basically told me something to the effect of, at different points in your marriage, you're going to have to prioritize one person's requirements or desires over your own. And so that may mean that this is the point in your career and in your life where you have to prioritize your husband's career. And I was like, I can't believe my dad just told me this, because it was totally different than what I would have expected. I would have thought he would say, like, no, you need to, follow your own path and do what's best for you, because this is your career, and so forth. And so that was a really big learning moment for me in terms of what it actually means to be in a relationship and a marriage. And so we've come across a lot of these different scenarios in the past, and have had to figure out, how do you think about it, and how do you navigate it, and come to terms with also the reality that not everything in life can be perfectly equal all the time. And sometimes it involves give and take.
Thank you so much for that insight and that very concrete example as well. Really appreciate that. Same question for Sandrine and Denise. Like, how have you merged your careers, goals, ambitions, and lives together as two individuals in a partnership?
Well, thanks, Yolanda. A lot of what Sonia was saying, we definitely resonate with as well. So I think we had two very independent lives before coming together, and we've been together for probably about, I think, 7 years now, married for 5, and with our son Marcel for about 2.5 years. So there's been a lot of kind of having our careers and our lives intermesh with each other. But just building on those phases and those moments in life where you're like, wow, will I have to make a jump to another geography or another area of my life? That certainly came true when we moved from, for example, New York to Singapore, right? So we met in New York together, and I think Sandrine was really great. We got married in Europe, but we kind of met each other in New York. We built our family together in New York as well. But at some point, in the back of my mind, I always knew that Sandrine wanted to go to Asia, right? She wanted to go back to Asia. I also worked in Asia for maybe about 6-7 years total of my career. So it was also in the back of my mind, but much further back. so we had to go fishing to get there. But I knew she wanted to move back to Asia, and she wanted, and I wanted to see her happy and fulfilled. So that was one thing that my company did not want me to move to Asia. It didn't make sense for it. My company is headquartered in Paris. Our largest offices are in the US as well. So they didn't want me to move to Singapore, but I did. We made the decision together to move to Asia. And really, it was about whether or not I could persuade my company to see that I could contribute, I could continue to lead organizations, but from Singapore with the time difference. So there are definitely some sacrifices, but we made it happen. We moved out together, and we were able to kind of have Sandrine continue the development of her career, but at the same time, me continue to push my career as well. And it really was the company that helped facilitate that as well.
Awesome. That's really great to hear, and awesome to hear that companies are supporting these kind of moves as well. Sorry, Sandrine, were you going to say something as well?
Yeah, I think the key was probably the first was a no, and then is persisting as well. So I already share that if you don't have a plan, somebody else will have a plan for you. So it was really convincing the company that we really wanted that and nothing else. And then raising a child in Singapore is much more easy than in New York. So for me, it was important for work-life balance and helping the dual career. Having the support system that you can have in Singapore is uncomparable with anywhere else in the world. So I was like, if we have a child, we need to be in Singapore. And so that really helped, and really we're really happy being here because Marcel is happy, and it works. I think it's easier to have a dual career in Singapore than anywhere in the world, especially if you start having children and more additional chore that maybe traditionally the wife would do, or so you can still focus on your career, your social life, and have a family and have all the things that you wish in your life.
Yeah, thank you both so much. That's so true. So my last question is for Theresa. So in your practice as a relationship therapist, what are some of the common mistakes you witness couples making during these key transitions?
Yolanda, after hearing both of them sharing the sacrifices they made, I'm very encouraged. And this is one of the common observations that I've seen, especially, in newlyweds. There's nothing wrong with the disbelief. Many newlyweds or even many couples, think that, hey, marriage is all about my happiness. This could actually come from our parents' traditional thinking, but many of them, there's nothing wrong with this thinking, but many of them actually forgot what makes this value or this principle is the fact that it's not about my happiness. It's about marriage, is about togetherness, us. So it's like a tango, a dance. When I take 3 steps forward, are you able to take 3 steps back? And when it's my time to take 3 steps forward, can I take the 3 steps back? So in other words, right, in marriage, what we are looking at when we make major decisions, have both our needs, have more both our concerns being addressed together. And this is one of the observations that I see in many couples, that they're unable to transit in all these major milestones because they were not able to have that connection, especially emotional connection, to have that, platform to help them to make the decisions.
Yeah, I have a bit of a follow-up on that. Like, is it something that you see, couples do consciously and actively, like the couples that make it work? Is it that they sit down and they come up with like a dual plan, or is it sort of that it's more a mindset that they kind of go in?
I would say, Yolanda, that it can come from 2 perspectives. One is the mindset. Perhaps even before marriage, both of them already have this discussion. What is the goal in the marriage? So when this happens, when there are transitions, it's like immediately they know our common goal is to make sure that, hey, we grow together. So whatever decisions I make, I have to make sure that both of us, feel happy about it. Of course, the other part is, the constant communication. Because we grow, and every stage we have different challenges. We may have different thinking. So the constant connection helps us to know where are we at every stage of our life.
Yeah. Okay, that's really clear. Thank you.
I think that's a good, if I could just jump in, Yolanda.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's a really interesting point around mindset and also common goals, because when I think about how we've had to make decisions between my career and Vikas's career, it's often based around the common goal that we have for our life and where we want to go, as well as the practicalities of the decision. So when I think about both of the times that we have moved for Vikas's career, it's really been because I felt that to a certain extent, if we wanted to get to the place where we had a goal for our life in terms of financial outcomes, in terms of what we wanted our future to look like, that meant that that one of us, either me or him, needed to take a certain amount of risk or commitment in order to actually fulfill that. Because the reality is that you can't actually have it all. Like, you can't not have it all, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. So meaning, if he had a great opportunity, which we felt would propel him to the next level to get us closer to our goal, then I would also need to be able to make somewhat of a sacrifice in order to do that. And I've seen that go both ways in our careers as well. When we came to Singapore, I wanted to join a startup, which meant less financial security, more risk. And at that point in time, he was in a more of a corporate job. And so we were able to make that trade-off, especially when you look at the financial, perspective of it, that I could go do something that I really wanted to try out. And, he would pursue something more corporate. And then later the tables turned on that when he wanted to start his own business. And then I made the decision to do something a bit more stable, given that we have a child and a family and things like that. So it's been a give and take. And I think the bottom line is the decision has been based on where we mutually agree that we want to go in the future and what both of us need to do in order to get there.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for adding that. That's really interesting. And having known you over these years and seen your evolution as a couple, it's been interesting to kind of watch that dynamic as well. Sandrine and Denise, is there anything you want to add on that before we move on?
Well, I think what Sonia just mentioned is definitely resonating with Sandrine and I. We were just discussing in the background on mute. But with Sandrine, I found it interesting that we've had this time where she's had corporate careers, and I, for the most part, I think I started my career a lot earlier with startups and had the flexibility, but I've been really focused on like Fortune 500s and corporate careers. And I've loved like the challenges, the opportunities that's provided. And with Sandrine, like I think in your career, she's veered more towards that entrepreneurial side, which I found really interesting, so that she can really take the time and the space to pursue all of her passions and just keep building on that passion. And I love seeing her thrive. So I love seeing her be able to like take all these, ingest all these frameworks and be able to see her really happy and thrive in what she does. So me having that corporate career, which I don't mind the corporate career, just gives her that freedom, I think, right? Like,
yeah, no, that really give exactly like what Sonia was saying, like having that stability of a corporate job, but then you can take more risk on the other side, because you're like, well, we have that steady income there. So even if it fails, because I think most people are prevented to shine in their career by fear of failure. So having it's like a plane with two motors. If one fail, you have two motors, you have still one going, and the plane is still flying. So it really, for me, was the difference with being a single career where you take all the risk for yourself, but having two people, you can take more risk and leap of faith, and so that's really helped both finding career that fulfill our purpose as well, and being healthy financially.
Yeah, I love this kind of this very symbiotic relationship, I think, between the both of you, and seeing that across both couples. That's really interesting. We've got some great questions coming in the chat. For all the attendees, please feel free to put them in there. We will be addressing those at the end. So thank you. So now we're just heading into our mid-webinar poll, talking about bad advice. For anyone anyone on the webinar, what's a piece of bad advice you often hear about making it work as a working couple? I don't know.
All right. I don't feel like I want to monopolize, but
yeah.
And then, oftentimes we hear about it's got to be a 50-50. So I need a 50-50 split in being able to make this relationship work together. I think since being together, it has never been a 50-50 split. Like, we just have different strengths and different things that we like to do, right? So I think that's important to recognize, is to parlay into each other's strengths and the type of things that each of us enjoy doing, right? So like in our household, for example, we got together because our life vision was very similar, and like what we wanted to do when we raised our child, and then later on when we want to retire together, we want to play like a lot of golf, we want to dive, we want to do all these things together, right? So I think that 50-50 just never came into play for us, right? So there are things that she likes better. For example, like she loves to plan trips, right? Or like she loves to do all the research online to figure out what is the best path for like our son. Whereas every time you get me to search for that long online, I will fall asleep, right? Like, I just don't have the capacity or like the perseverance to follow that path. But then there are other things that I can do. Like, for example, I can stay up all hours of the day and I don't need that sleep that she needs, right? Like, I can like take care of our child, no problem.
Early morning.
Very little sleep, early morning and late night, no problem. Or I can do our taxes or our finances and I love it, right? And she's like, oh,
I hate it.
I really don't want
to. So it's like playing to your strengths ultimately. And having that awareness of what your strengths are, what do you enjoy, what gives you energy as well.
And also outsourcing as well, I think, because there's a lot of tasks that you can outsource, right? Like grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning. So, and that's the beauty about Singapore, is the things that you can, delegate or outsource and have a support system. That's the thing that typically couple, maybe in Europe or US, would fight about. But you can delegate a lot of that 50-50 and focus then on quality time with our child or our career as well. So I think that's the key advantage of being in Singapore, is that we can free that time. And then I guess it's less conflict as well, because it's not like, oh, you didn't clean the dishes, or I don't know, that doesn't happen here. So that's I think that helps.
But when we were
Yeah.
living in New York, I'll build on that though, that when we didn't have help. And so there were times for sure where I was like, okay, I need you to help, to ask for that help. I need you to help. I know you don't like doing dishes. I know you don't like doing this stuff, but I really need you to help. And she would reluctantly, yes, she would step in. But then afterwards, feel very accomplished. And I'd hear about it for at least a month.
Awesome.
Yolanda?
Yes.
I just
please.
wanted to add on to what Denise and Sandrine said. I mean, it just so resonated to me. I mean, relationships is never simple. It is complex, and 50-50 will never give you the 100%. In fact, it's 100 plus 100, then you will get 100% in a relationship. But I would just want to add on, especially to what Sandrine said about outsourcing, and also back to your question about what the so-called bad advice that we have here from organization. One of the things, one of the so-called stigma that I have been hearing, especially in Asian organizations, is leadership and parenting, they don't mix. But I want to encourage to ladies that actually, yes, it's not going to be easy. I have seen couples, they have a lot of conflicts because of management, because of leadership, career advancement, and the lack of time to actually take care of children. But what I want to touch on and also reiterate what Sandrine said is, when we put in boundaries, when we actually outsource, I mean, there's certain tasks that we can outsource. We don't need to do everything. And when we know our boundaries, I think it can work, especially if we have the support from the other spouse. It doesn't mean that we have to give up our career or give up our identity just to, be a parent. It can work, but it must take a lot of hard work, I must say.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like just normalizing some of the outsourcing and doing so. But what I often see with women at Uncommon is there's sometimes a lot of like guilt both ways. It's like guilt if you're going to pick your kid up from work, and then guilt if you're if you're not going to be at that recital or something. And so I don't know, Sonia, if you have a point on that, or if you wanted to add
on the mom guilt aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I think I have less mom guilt than I think a lot of people. And I think that's based in my belief for myself that I have to prioritize what makes me happy in order to be the best version of myself for my daughter. So that means that I want to work. And so because it makes me feel happy and fulfilled. And so I need to take that time away from her. It also means that I also want to spend time with my friends. I also want to be able to, work out or spend my time in ways that make me happy. And then the time in which I do spend with my daughter is time where I am more present in the moment, and I don't feel resentment that, I didn't get to do something else, or that I feel pulled in another direction because my mind is somewhere else. So I try to take that time specifically so that I actually can give her like a better experience of me when we are together. And that's just my perspective. I totally appreciate that other people feel differently, but that's kind of how I frame it in my mind so that it makes me feel less guilty. And I think we are very blessed to be here in Singapore and have easier access to to help. That definitely really aids in being a dual working relationship and having children, because otherwise it would be a lot more difficult. But I think also, even so, Vikas and I both recognize that we need to have some space to ourselves during the weekend. So like Saturday morning, I always go to this specific workout class and I grab a coffee with my friend afterwards. So that's like my, whatever 2 or 3 hour thing that I do on my own. And then we go and do stuff as a family. Meanwhile, on a Sunday morning, he may want to go and do his workout and go for, a run for 2 hours or whatever he wants to do. And, I'm okay with that because he's got to have his time as well.
I love that, and it's definitely something I've really admired in you, is like that ability to kind of see that bird's eye view, and that it's a marathon when you are pursuing a career and raising a kid, and you've, at least from the outside, you make it look very effortless.
Well, it's definitely not. I'm glad I can make it look like that, but it's super hard. And I mean, I think it also depends on where you are in your stage of life, like where you are in your stage of career. I'm more senior in my career, so I can take more liberties. If I was more junior, it would be more difficult. You know, that's just the reality. My daughter is also, like, she's 4 right now. I'm pregnant with our second one. And so, you know, her demands and requirements are different than maybe when she's a teenager. And then I may actually have to change what I do now at that point in time. So, you know, there's no like perfect recipe. This is just what works now. Maybe when she's a teenager and she needs a lot more of that like emotional support and things like that, I'll need to take more of my time and give it to her. But now, when my daughter is, you know, super happy with like doing glitter and watching Paw Patrol, it's easier for me to sneak away.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, Sonia. I think we're going to move on to a subject that I think everyone's touched on, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into, which is this 50-50 myth. You know, famously, the former US First Lady, Michelle Obama, recently made headlines where she said she couldn't stand her husband, Barack Obama, for a decade while the couple's children were young. And in frank comments on a panel conversation, Obama said that raising children had put a strain on her 3-decade marriage to Barack Obama. So she also goes on, you know, to echo what a lot of our panelists have said today, that marriage isn't 50-50 ever. So we're going to watch this short clip. And yeah, just to give us a little bit of context from another couple as well. Thank you, Uncommon team.
10 years. Well, I couldn't stand my husband. You
You say that. You say
10 long
10
years. And guess when it happened? When those kids were little, right?
Yes.
Right? Because, you know, you can be all great individually when you're just married. You got your life, he's got his, you come together. It's all, ooh, good to see you, bye, take it easy. And then you have kids.
Not take it easy.
Take it easy. You're traveling. That's great. Good. I get to hang out and watch the TV I want to watch.
Right.
But the minute we had kids, it was like, where are you going? And how far? And you start measuring. It's like, how many diapers did you change? And oh, you're golfing? Oh, you got time? 10 years. Well, I couldn't stand my husband.
Yeah, so that's just a little snippet. Yeah, that you know, this is definitely a challenge that I think a lot of dual ambition careers really face as well. I'll move on to some questions now. So for both Sandrine and Sonia, would love to hear, what are your thoughts on 50-50 relationship? We talked about this a little bit, but to delve a little bit deeper, and what's your experience on what, I would love to hear specifically what your experience on what compromise actually looks like.
Right, maybe I'll start. Yeah, so it's funny, when we're looking at the question, we're to 50-50, and then we had a big debate. So we follow the business rule of 80-20, you know. I'm joking, but yeah, it's also based on I think stamina and preferences. So and also what we are good at and what we like to do, right? There's things that both of us hate, is cleaning and outshore. But luckily we delegated those, so that's good. And then there's other things where, yeah, I will be well, she would do a better job, or I would do a better job, and then we divide like that. And also based on energy. So Denise is more of a morning person, so she loves to wake up when Marcel wake up. I don't. I'd rather sleep. And so, but I love to play. I love to maybe do educational things. So we do what we try to follow what we like and what we are good at, and follow their energy as well. And then anything else that really we don't like, we try to delegate if possible. And that's so that's really following our instinct. Denise loves cooking. I don't like cooking. I never liked that. Even before we met, I would go to a restaurant or order something, but she loved it. So obviously she's doing probably, 99% of the cooking, or we all chores as well. But so I think if we would be in a different country than Singapore, that would be a challenge. We'll be probably arguing about the 50-50. I'll be on the losing end, definitely.
I would love to know, before we move on to Sonia, and this is one for Sonia to think about as well, how do you avoid sort of keeping score?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I don't keep score.
I think if we had kept score, like I'd have so many IOUs.
She'd be the winner. She'd be the new. And also it's interesting. I don't know if you know Enneagram, but I'm a type 7 Enneagram who like to have fun, enjoy life, and laid back. Denise is a type 3, which is very common in Asian, actually, woman leader, which is very achieving. So typically in life, we have a different kind of thing where she likes to get things done. She liked to have to-do lists. I remember when we were dating in New York, I would wake up and she would be like, okay, what are we going to do today? And then ding, ding, ding. And I'm like, what? I like to chill and go with the flow. And so, of course, she liked to do more and she liked to do a lot. I'm more like, if I can delegate things or take it easy, I will take the lazy road any day. But I think it's also why you probably would be, scoring.
I think the resentment thing, if we could just go on that for 1 second. I won't lie. I won't shy away from it. There are times when you're like, God, I feel like I'm doing so much and I'm tired, right? I'm really, really tired. And then you look at your partner, I'm tired. And I think she's been wise enough to just recognize when I do make those cries for help, and it's not as frequent, but when I do, I'm just like, look, you got to step in here with me. Otherwise, that's it. I'll check out, right? I'll check out and I'm just going to go to bed like you do and just go to bed. That's it. There are moments like that for sure, but I find she steps up to those occasions. And if she doesn't, she'll just get the stern eye.
Great. Okay, thanks. Maybe first of all, I'd like to welcome Vikas. I know you're running a bit behind, but thank you so much.
So sorry, everybody. I've been in meetings all morning and I didn't have my phone and I didn't have my computer. And I just so sorry. Apologies.
No problem. We're chatting a little bit about, and maybe this one I'll give to you because we haven't heard from you, but what are your thoughts on a 50-50 relationship? Is that possible? Is that even desirable? Or what has been your experience on what compromise looks like as well?
What do you mean by 50-50 relationship?
Like in a career, in a relationship like yours and Sonia's, where you're both, both pursuing, your careers, your dreams, your lives. Sometimes there's this myth, or what we were chatting about earlier was that there's sometimes this idea that it has to be exactly, equal, but maybe that's not always possible, and there's sort of seasons that you go through in a relationship. But yeah, I would love to hear from you on your thoughts around how you and Sonia have approached this in your relationship, and also what compromise really looks like.
I wish I was here for the first 40 minutes because I hope whatever I say, I'm not going to get myself into trouble based on what Sonia said earlier, and I apologize in advance, hon. So I think philosophically, the way that for us, the way that things work philosophically is we very much philosophically try to, we're fully respectful of each other. For me, what that means is absolutely 50-50. But you mentioned seasons, and I think day to day, it can vary, right? Like simple stuff, right? Like, so Sonia might have a week where she's out 3 nights. And that means that I have got to take care of our daughter, and we're very lucky to be in Singapore where we have help and stuff like that. But but that's okay. And sometimes I need to miss out on things that I want to maybe do for work or work meetings. And sometimes she has to miss out on things. And I think it's just important for us I think communication is probably the most important thing. Like for instance, an hour into my meetings this morning, I knew that like I was missing a few other things because I didn't have my phone and my laptop with me, but I needed to do those things. So that's like, I think it's just with the relationship with my wife, it's the same thing. It's communication is much more important than like the extra time. If I need to be 70 one day and she's 30, the worst thing that I could do is just not communicate about it. But if we're communicated about it and, she's always so agreeable and knows like that, hey, if I'm not there, it's because of something important, and likewise the other way around. And yeah. And then, you try to be sensitive around when the mistakes happen, because they are going to happen, like today.
It's happened. It happens. No problem.
Maybe I can jump in. So,
Yeah,
I think, okay, I think I definitely agree with Sandrine and Denise that 50-50 doesn't happen. And also Vikas's point on how it ebbs and flows, right? Sometimes it's weighted one way and the other time it's weighted the other way. But I definitely will say it is hard to not have that resentment. So I totally understand what Michelle Obama is saying when she says it's difficult not to keep count. And I'm definitely guilty of that. I wish that I was more of an evolved person that could, not bring that to the table occasionally, but it does happen. And I think to Vikas's point, though, it comes down to communication. And also, I think acknowledging that within the relationship of the times when it does feel unequal and trying to solve that, I guess. I mean, I think also one of the elements is depending on your personality, like I will probably take on more on myself because I feel like I can do it better than Vikas. Or not that I could do it better, but it will just be done the way that I envision it to be done, right? So I think one thing that I need to do, and which I have was actually reminded of a conversation with another Uncommon member, Sue, about how she also helps balance things in her relationship, is just letting go, telling her husband, I need you to do this one thing, whatever it is, X, Y, Z, and then letting them run with it instead of micromanaging the process. And that also helps bring more balance when you just accept, okay, I'm going to get this will get done. It may not get done the way that I exactly want it to get done, but that's also how you take less on yourself. And so that's something that I'm trying to do, not perfect, but I think that's another way to also rebalance things is to just, given like an assignment and ask, and then you just let it be. Difficult for my personality, but trying.
I've heard that a lot actually and I think there's this concept of being a gatekeeper in a relationship, and that like women can sometimes fall into this place of like, okay, I have a vision for like exactly how it's supposed to be executed. And definitely like certain personality types over others, and and that like that also means that a lot more can kind of fall on you as well. So that's interesting that it's something we're testing out. Because
something that our counselor told us years back, like before we got married, we had the year leading into our marriage, we had a counselor to like work out the kinks and stuff, and it was awesome. And her name was Heidi, and we kind of joke around, what would Heidi say sometimes, right? We say that a lot. But Heidi, one of the concepts that was like enlightening for us was that the concept of, your partner is not a mind reader. Nobody is a mind reader. And so like, we all go around every day thinking that things should happen, right? And like, that's basically what we try to build at work a lot, right? Is kind of automation, and things should be happening on this schedule and regular basis and this and that. But then we also kind of like, I think that at least in my case, I'm guilty and Sonia's guilty as well, right? Of like thinking that somehow that like the mind reading element that also works with emotions, that also works with responsibilities and other things, or that, hey, you should just be picking this up, or you should be doing this, or you should know this. And I guess just in this day and age, it's crazy because there's just so much going on in our lives all the time. And then we've got these phones and devices and everything, and you can have the best of intentions, but sometimes just screw things up. And so I think one of the things that really helps with our relationship is just making sure that we're very clear about what it is that we want, and being very clear about what we need. Because otherwise it's very easy to get disappointed, like, hey, my spouse doesn't address my needs. And it's just like, I'm sorry. It's just like, I'm not a mind reader.
Always know. Yeah. Thank you, Theresa. I feel like this is a good place maybe to get your insight as a relationship counselor. You know, how do you see this kind of coming up with the people that you see as well?
Definitely. I mean, of course, no, we all know that there's no such thing as 50-50. But in all the couples that I see, couples will come in with two needs, okay, two attachment needs. Basically, they are companionship and partnership. And if we can meet these two needs, you find that if there's any major decision or even conflicts, it'll be easier for them. So let me explain what companionship and what partnership is. I'm going to share this very simple example. Okay, I have a couple that comes in. They are a new couple and they have a newborn baby, and they have constantly conflicts about each other. You know, just for example, not talking about, you know, like comparing who is doing more in this, you know, parenting role. So one of the issues that they have is the mother, the wife, she's having problem with trying to put the baby to sleep. And every time it's time to put the baby to sleep, it's a very stressful period for her. And so every time she will want the husband to come in and sit with her in the bedroom to get the baby to sleep. But for the husband, his thinking is that, hey, you know, can you please put the baby to sleep while I'm busy with clearing the mess or cleaning the house? So in this case, you're looking at two different people with two different needs, and there's nothing wrong with them. Husband is looking for partnership. You put baby to sleep while I try to get the house in neat and tidy manner. For the wife, because she has so much anxiety, so much stress trying to put the baby to sleep, she will actually want the husband to be next to her just to give her some encouragement, assurance, or maybe some help if the baby cries. So it took me a while to help them to understand that they all have two different needs. So after a while, they learn. So whenever the wife actually put the baby to sleep, husband will say, okay, I'll just join you for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. And if the baby's drowsy, I'll just leave the room quietly. And for the wife, you know, she will know that, hey, you know, once the baby is asleep, I will come out the room and help my husband to continue on with the housework or cleaning of the house. So once, you know, their needs are being met, it's no longer about comparison about what you do and what I do in this marriage.
Yeah, oh, I love that. That's really clear, and I love that framework of companionship versus partnership.
Yes,
and that it can kind of change
needs
in different scenarios. Yeah, interesting. So we just have a couple more minutes left, so I'm going to open. I'm going to open up before we do the kind of conclusion and get to some of the questions that have been asked thus far. So I'm just going to go through them. So the first is from someone anonymous, is in today's market, it seems like corporate careers may not be the most stable in the long run. How do you plan for the long term and the inevitable bumps that will come along the way? Is there anything you do on a regular basis to check in with each other to ensure you're on the right track as a couple? Why don't I start with Denise and Sandrine?
Well, I'm in the ad tech industry, and as you guys have probably read in the news every single day, there are layoffs. Based like Meta, Amazon, Google, every single company is laying off. So that I think that comment that corporate careers may not be the most stable in the long run, it seems to run true right now, right? So, I think you always have to ask yourself, there are people who work in that corporate career and they get fulfillment from that though too, right? So they like the drive, they like the kind of the matrix organizations, they don't mind the politics, they see like the benefit of being able to work in a large company and move things for a greater number of people, and a great like the decisions you make as a leader and a manager, they impact hundreds of people as opposed to a small few, right? So the bumps in that regards, like we've talked about this a lot. There are things that I definitely want to pursue later on, maybe in life, in my career as well. But right now, like I'm still thriving from this. But I get the benefit of working with Sandrine, where she's like a coach and like agile change manager. Like she is all about change. So it's really helped me to embrace some of that as I think through skills and areas that I want to continue to develop. That was really, really important. So I use her to be able to balance and check in and just say, hey, like I'm feeling this is an area that I want to develop, or I'm feeling these feelings right now. I'm able to check in because she's got a very complementary field to where I kind of aspire and want to go later in life. So I think
Awesome.
To Vikas's point, it's about being able to communicate that to each other as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. I'd love to turn this to Sonia and Vikas. Either of you want to take this question? How do you plan for this uncertainty, the inherent uncertainty in life?
Maybe can I just add on to what
Oh, sure.
Denise
Yeah.
said,
Yeah. Go
right?
ahead, Theresa. Yeah.
I mean, life is full of ups and downs, and just like in any marital life, we cannot anticipate, retrenchments, grief, or any disappointment in life. But one of the things that I learned from my clients when working with them is the need of curiosity and the need of empathy. When you are curious, you open up that part of you to find out what's happening over in the other party. Whatever there's major events that's happening, how is it impacting on the other party? And when you are able to extend the empathy, it's like, you might say that, hey, it's just a small thing, but think about it. If it's a small thing, how come it's affecting your partner so greatly? Have that empathy. And remember, it's all about walking with each other. And with empathy and curiosity, this is something that we could use to form as a strong foundation to journey all the ups and downs in life.
Great. Thank you so much, Theresa. Thanks for that. That's really useful. Sonia or Vikas, you guys want to weigh in on this question?
I see you unmuting, Vikas. Do you want to go, or should I?
No,
I have some thoughts.
You go first, Sam.
Yeah, I think like Theresa said, there's so many things in life you can't plan for. And so I think the question is, where do you feel like there's instability in your life that you would need to look out for? Meaning, is it financial considerations? Is it is it more of like emotional considerations? Obviously, with instability in working, financial planning is one aspect of it, but also like the fulfillment part, right? If you need to switch gears in your career, how do you do that, and what is it supposed to look like? So I think it depends on what you're kind of trying to solve for. But ultimately, I can never really see more than 2 or 3 years ahead of me in time. And so I try to focus on, what are the near-term things that I can control and what are the things that I can't control. Ultimately, when it comes to layoffs, often this is so far above anyone. And while corporate may be experiencing this right now, Vikas can attest that being in a startup is really no more stable than being in a corporate. And so all of these things ebb and flow. I think it comes down to just, what's your priority at that point of time. Like, being at a corporate, even though it is not as stable right now because of the markets, everything is affected by the markets, but you also have things like, healthcare, retirement savings, maternity leave policies, these types of things, which in a startup environment you may or may not have. Obviously, it depends on the company, but those are more givens in a corporate typically.
Super useful. We're at time, but I'm gonna ask one last question. And those that can stay on. But how do you avoid going down the tracking, blaming route? Do you divide? We've touched on the subject a little bit, but do you divide responsibilities? Has this been something that you've done in the past? Like, what have you done to overcome that?
If I could just, maybe just kick in here, contribute here. I just get I guess one of the things that works the best in relationships, especially when you're trying to just get over, it's so easy to get into a fight. We have kids, we've got our work, we've got a million different things going on. It's like you have a bad meal and all of a sudden you could be upset. It's like, it's so easy. It's like, I'd say that one of the best things, it's so easy to kind of become happy too if you want to be, if you're in the right mindset. I have found lately especially that I have to just kind of shed my ego, even if I feel like Sonia is wrong. And Sonia is super pregnant right now, so she's okay, she can be as wrong as she wants. I just gotta shed my ego and just try to focus on how we can quickly fix things or set things on the right course, if that means that I should apologize, and sincerely apologize and kind of consider, something that's okay. It's just that, and then also just having a healthy perspective. I feel with a lot of planning, just to the last question, I feel like a lot of planning, a lot of talking about the future, talking about the past, keeping score. I'm still uncertain in my own life how much this helps. And I often find that just trying to actually be grateful for what's in front of us at that very moment and appreciating how much wonderful stuff we have going on in our lives. I feel like, at least for myself, I find that I benefit from that the most, and it's like a practice. It's not so easy actually, because we're always so obsessed with growth, with chasing metrics, and there's no end to it. There's actually no end to it. It's like, can't we just for a second be proud of what we have achieved, or be proud of who we are, and be happy with what we have? I think that's important for us to all remind ourselves of that if we want to have healthy relationships as well.
Oh, that's so beautifully put, Vikas. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. We're a little over time, so I am going to wrap up, but thank you everyone for your questions, for coming out today. And yeah, a big thank you to all of our attendees for coming to this webinar. A massive thank you to our speakers for sharing their incredible insights. I think that, I'm getting a lot of pings about how inspiring you all are, and just demystifying this. I think sometimes people, see couples like both of our couples here today, and, just wonder how you even do it. And so thank you so much for sharing that with the audience today. And giving those insights. So I would just like to wrap up by saying that, from the team at Uncommon, these are the kind of conversations that we're looking to have, that we're looking to normalize for female leaders. And we are going to put the link in the chat if this resonates with anyone and they do want to apply. Thank you all so much. And thank you to Theresa and all of our speakers today.
Thank you, Yolanda. Thanks, everyone.